Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into the incredibly wild history of how the modern automobile actually came to be. And let me tell you, the shift from horse-drawn carriages to the combustion engines we know today, it definitely wasn't a straight line. It's a story full of really surprising twists, brilliant roadside ingenuity, and massive format wars. So let's jump right in and break down exactly how we got here.
Okay, let's start by busting a pretty common myth right out of the gate. We always tend to picture great inventions as this sudden lightning bolt eureka moment happening to a lone genius in a workshop. But that's just not how it happened with the car. It wasn't invented overnight. Instead, it was this complex, centuries-long evolution. We're talking a massive leap from clunky, heavy steam machines to the sleek, gas-powered vehicles we're used to seeing on the roads today. To really see how we got here, we're going to track this relay race of innovation across three major leaps, starting way back in 1769 with the first steam vehicle, fast-forwarding to 1886 for the birth of the modern car, and finally landing in 1908 with the dawn of mass production.
All right, we start with the brutal, heavy beginnings of raw mechanical power. Back in 1769, a French inventor named Nicolas Joseph Cugnot built the very first self-propelled mechanical vehicle. Now, this thing absolutely wasn't built for a casual Sunday drive. It was a massive, three-wheeled tractor powered by a giant steam boiler, and its sole purpose was to haul heavy artillery for the French army. And its top speed? 2.5 miles per hour. You could literally just casually stroll past it as it chugged along. So let's skip ahead a bit over a century to 1886, where we meet German engineer Carl Benz and his famous patent Motorwagen. Now, this is widely considered to be the world's first true automobile. And why is that? Well, it's because Benz actually designed it from scratch, specifically around a gas engine. He didn't just take an old horse carriage and slap a bulky motor onto it, right? It was a completely unified, fresh vision of what a vehicle could actually be. That being said, early car designers still heavily borrowed from whatever technology was already lying around in their workshops. It perfectly explains why everyone called them horseless carriages back then. Just think about it. They used wire-spoke wheels borrowed straight from bicycles and a simple wooden tiller for steering, instead of a proper steering wheel. But the real magic was tucked away in the back. It had this tiny single-cylinder engine that generated less than 1 single horsepower. I mean, it was modest for sure, but absolutely revolutionary. But here's the thing. An invention is totally useless if it isn't practical. And the general public back then, they were highly skeptical of Benz's loud, smelly machine. So, in 1888, Carl's wife and business partner, Bertha Benz, decides to take matters into her own hands. Without even telling her husband, she takes the Motorwagen on a 65-mile road trip just to prove to the world that this thing was actually viable. Now remember, there were exactly 0 gas stations or auto mechanics in 1888. So when the car inevitably broke down along the dusty road, Bertha had to improvise big time. At one point, she actually cleared a clogged fuel line in the carburetor using her own hat pin. And later on, she insulated a worn-out ignition wire using her garter. Talk about on-the-fly engineering. By making these brilliant repairs with her wardrobe accessories, she successfully finished the journey and proved to all those skeptics that cars really did work in the real world. So, Bertha proves the concept. But as we roll into the early 1900s, it definitely was not a guarantee that gasoline would be the fuel of the future. Actually, scratch that. It was highly contested. Gasoline was locked in this massive, fierce, three-way format battle for total supremacy. Drivers basically had 3 main options, and they each had major pros and cons. Steam cars, super reliable and powerful, but on a cold morning, it could literally take up to 30 minutes just to build up enough steam to start the engine. Who has time for that? Then you had electric cars, which were quiet, clean, and actually super popular in cities, but the early batteries just couldn't handle long-distance trips. So gasoline ultimately won this great battle strictly due to practicality. It offered instant starts and a high energy density, which meant drivers could travel way farther between stops. Okay, so if Benz gave the car its soul and its engine, Henry Ford gave it ubiquity. Before Ford came along, cars were entirely hand-built, crazy expensive toys for the ultra-wealthy. Ford realized that if he wanted everyone to drive, he had to completely change how the machine itself was built. So he standardized the parts and introduced the moving assembly line, bringing the work directly to the workers instead of having them walk all the way around the car. And this single manufacturing shift was absolutely monumental. Ford slashed the time it took to build one single Model T from 12 grueling hours of handcrafting down to just 93 minutes. 93 minutes. By standardizing the whole process, they were suddenly pumping out cars at a rate nobody had ever seen before.
And what does that kind of extreme efficiency give you? It gives you a massive drop in price. As a direct result of the assembly line, the price of the Model T basically fell off a cliff. It went from $850 in 1908 all the way down to under $300 by the 1920s. This completely democratized the automobile. It took the car from being an experimental novelty for the rich and turned it into a global necessity for the everyday person. It completely reshaped our cities and quite literally laid down the modern highways we drive on today. So, to wrap things up, gasoline absolutely won the 20th century, mostly because of its range and energy density. But when we look around today at the massive push for electric vehicles in our modern cities, it really makes you wonder, are we innovating something brand new right now, or are we simply picking up an abandoned thread from the great engine battle of the early 1900s? History has a really funny way of repeating itself, and understanding these early origins gives us a completely new lens to view the future of our roads. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.